If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. In Unearthly acquisition, Kevin Mannis buys the box. Kevin Mannis had no idea what he was bringing home that September morning in 2001. The Portland estate sale seemed ordinary enough. Cables filled with old china, faded photographs, and forgotten memories of a life well lived. The elderly woman running the sale moved slowly between the items. Her eyes held the weight of recent loss. She explained that everything belonged to her grandmother, a Holocaust survivor who had recently passed away at 103 years old. Among the scattered belongings sat a simple wine cabinet, dark wood, about the size of a small suitcase. Nothing fancy, but Kevin needed storage for his antique shop. He offered $20. The woman's face changed. She stared at the box with something that looked like fear. "She always said never to open it," she whispered. "My grandmother kept it locked away. She would never tell us why." Kevin almost walked away. Something in her voice made him pause. But business was business. The woman reluctantly accepted his money, her hands shaking as she counted the bills. Back at his shop, Kevin examined his purchase more carefully. Inside the cabinet, he found strange items. 2 old pennies, a small granite slab, a dried rosebud, and a golden wine goblet. Strangest of all was a lock of blonde hair tied with string. That first night, the dreams began. Dark shadows moving through his bedroom, whispers in a language he couldn't understand. Kevin woke up drenched in sweat, the scent of cat urine filling his nostrils. But he owned no cats. The smell wouldn't leave. It followed him through the house, sharp and bitter. Friends who visited wrinkled their noses and asked about the odor. Kevin cleaned everything twice. The smell remained. 2 weeks later, he decided to give the cabinet to his mother as a gift. She loved antiques, and maybe a change of location would help. His mother was delighted. She placed it in her sewing room and admired the craftsmanship. That same afternoon, she collapsed. The stroke came without warning. Doctors found no explanation for why a healthy 72-year-old woman suddenly couldn't speak or move her right side. As Kevin sat in the hospital, his phone rang. His shop's alarm was going off. When he arrived, he found every light bulb in the building had burned out simultaneously. The smell was stronger than ever. Something was terribly wrong with that innocent-looking box. The eBay auction, a story spreads and new owners emerge. In June 2003, Kevin Mannis made a choice that would change everything. He decided to sell the wooden cabinet on eBay. But this was not just any ordinary sale. Mannis wrote a long, detailed story about the box. He told about the strange dreams. He described the terrible smell that came and went. He shared how his mother suffered a stroke after touching it. Every frightening detail was there for the world to read. The story spread like wildfire across the internet. People shared it with friends. They talked about it on forums. Something about the tale gripped readers in ways no one expected. The auction ended with a winning bid of $280. A college student named Iosif Nitsky bought the box. He thought it would be an interesting conversation piece for his dorm room. He was wrong. Within days, Nitsky began having nightmares. In his dreams, he saw an old woman with wild hair. She would stare at him with hatred in her eyes. The dreams felt so real that he would wake up in cold sweats. Strange things happened around his dorm. His hair began falling out in clumps. Electronic devices would stop working for no reason. Other students complained about awful smells coming from his room. Nitsky tried to ignore these events at first, but the experiences grew worse each day. After just a few weeks, he put the box back on eBay. He wrote his own story about what had happened to him. The next owner was a young man named Jason Haxton. He worked at a medical museum and thought he could handle whatever the box might bring. He was curious about the mystery surrounding it. But Jason's experience followed the same terrible pattern. He developed strange health problems. Welts appeared on his body overnight. He had difficulty sleeping. Even his family members began having bad dreams when they visited his home. Each person who owned the box added their own chapter to its growing legend. Their stories were remarkably similar. The same types of nightmares, the same unexplained illnesses, the same feeling that something dark was watching them. What started as one man's private problem had become a shared mystery. The internet allowed these stories to reach millions of people. Each new account made the legend stronger and more frightening. The box had found its perfect stage. In the digital age, its story could travel anywhere instantly. People who had never heard of Dybbuk spirits were now searching for answers about this strange wooden cabinet. The mystery was no longer contained to one person's basement. It had escaped into the world, gathering new believers with every telling. Investigation and debate. The box under scrutiny. The box found its way to Jason Haxton in 2003, a museum director who thought he could handle whatever came with it. He was wrong from the start. Strange things began almost immediately. Haxton woke up with mysterious bruises covering his arms and legs. His hair started falling out in clumps. Nightmares plagued his sleep, filled with shadowy figures speaking in languages he didn't understand. His wife complained of feeling watched whenever she passed the room where the box sat. The smell came next. A putrid odor of cat urine and jasmine flowers that seemed to follow Haxton wherever he went. Doctors found nothing wrong with him, but his health continued to decline. Friends noticed his personality changing. He became irritable, paranoid, convinced that something was hunting him. Desperate for answers, Haxton reached out to rabbis and spiritual advisors. They told him to wrap the box in silk and place it inside a gold-lined container. He followed their instructions exactly, adding protective amulets and burning sage around it daily. The episodes lessened, but never fully stopped. Haxton began documenting everything. He collected witness statements, photographed unexplained marks, and recorded temperature drops around the box. His careful notes and evidence gathering helped build the legend into something bigger than anyone imagined. The story spread across the internet like wildfire. But then cracks appeared in the foundation of the tale. Investigators started asking hard questions. Where exactly did the box come from? Why were there no records of Holocaust survivors with that specific story? Professional historians found no evidence of the grandmother's supposed background. The wood looked too new, the construction methods too modern. Kevin Mannis, the original seller, began giving conflicting accounts. First, he said he bought it from an estate sale. Later, he claimed it was given to him by the survivor herself. Then he changed details about the woman's story entirely. The internet detectives dug deeper. They found that Mannis was a creative writer who had published fiction before. His eBay listing read more like a horror story than a factual account. Photos of the box showed inconsistencies that suggested staging. In 2021, Mannis finally admitted what many suspected. He had made up most of the story. The ox was real, but the dramatic history was fiction. He wanted to create something mysterious, something that would capture people's imagination. Yet even with this confession, questions remained. Haxton still insisted his experiences were genuine. Other owners reported similar incidents. Were these psychological effects from believing in a curse? Could the power of suggestion create real physical symptoms? The truth seemed more complicated than simple fraud or genuine supernatural activity. Something about this ordinary wooden box continued to affect people in extraordinary ways.